consciousness is the starting point of reality.
Completely antithetical to that attitude in science.
What is reality?
We're now at this great inflection.
Video games and all of that is actually the most important spiritual tools we've got today.
The whole point of a virtual reality is to have useful fiction of causality.
The individual never gets enlightened. It's the enlightenment that becomes the individual.
Space-time is doomed.
Consciousness is fundamental.
Einstein's theory actually predicts its own demise.
Balance is not the ability to stand up, it's the ability to rise up.
Please like, comment, and subscribe.
So, yes, we were talking about that kind of meeting point between science and spirituality. What do you see as kind of the biggest obstacle besides time-space that the scientific community in general kind of has to deal with in order to expand?
Well, I think that the interesting thing about science is that our own theories, our own best theories, are telling us that space-time cannot be fundamental. Mm-hmm. We're seeing that from evolution by natural selection, which tells us that the very predicates of space and time cannot be the right predicates to describe objective reality. We see it when we bring quantum theory and Einstein's gravity together, where we realize that space-time itself has to be an approximate and an emergent notion from something deeper, and the physicists now are finding these deeper structures. That they're starting to go vertical and looking for new structures outside of space-time. Yeah. And so I think I'm actually quite sanguine about science in this regard. That science is conservative. It will take time, and rightfully so. We don't move away from our current theories until we have something that's really substantial, that comprehends everything that our current theories can do, and gives us new value, new insights that go beyond. And so what I see many physicists doing right now, finding things like the amplitude-hedron and spacehedron, these deep structures beyond space-time. I think
these are the cookie crumbs I mentioned. This is basically what we, from this reality, the cookie crumbs we can find in order to kind of like connect to the next level.
That's right. And so exactly right. There are these tantalizing hints
exactly.
that we're finding. There's something deeper. There's a new conceptual framework. Yes. This is not a minor revision letting go of space-time. That is not minor. This is huge. Yes. And the physicists understand, at least many physicists working on it, they understand that a huge conceptual revolution is required. But the physicists are also, I think, appropriately conservative. And that is that, it's not that anything goes, that, space-time is doomed, so we just throw away everything that we've done. No. Everything that we've done in space-time is exceedingly important, because whatever deeper theory of reality we have to show how it projects into space-time, and it better give us back Einstein's gravity or generalization of it and so forth.
We'll actually get a better understanding of it. So it's not like we leave anything behind. Again, it's about getting more contextual and getting that contextual understanding and consciousness, which means that whatever we relate to and have related to, we will simply get a better understanding of how it really works based on like when we put that into a larger functioning context. And this is the thing. I think people in general have a tendency to think that, oh yeah, we'll find out something new, let's throw that old stuff away. It's, to me, the approach is the opposite. We get deeper understanding and higher understanding, and it's like understanding the process of defractalization, which means like it's for each step getting closer to oneness and closer to the source, which means that we get deeper into the mathematics, deeper into the completeness and the logic, and then yes, we then have to understand how things are fractalized and how it's being projected into different forms of space-time. And that, of course, will happen also through those cookie crumbs. Because just like, in our personal spiritual journey, when we meditate, when we do our spiritual practices, we will also have these kind of drops. Often, it's like when we're still in a specific type of consciousness, and we'll have a small opening, is what we call alignment. It's basically that, our consciousness is also complex, and there are a lot of things floating around, and sometimes there will be an alignment. And all of a sudden, you can kind of get a peek through your own limitations and access a higher level of consciousness. And through that alignment, you will then have this kind of jolt of higher consciousness coming into your limited awareness. And then you will have an insight. But you still do not understand how to transform that into your practical living. And that's what you need to figure out in order to expand for real, because an expansion has to happen on all levels. And this is also the thing, once we expand scientifically, we still have to make that work on all levels. And then, fine tune and kind of redefine our understanding of the existing science. It will happen. But it's just so fascinating that, human sciences have finally come to that point where one can start kind of like penetrating these walls and understand a different type of mathematics. Because yes, what we need to be aware of, just like in spiritual work, once we enter a kind of new level for real, it transforms absolutely everything. Absolutely everything. And it means that, it could be, for most people, it can be difficult to understand, but you can find some of these mathematical cookie crumbs. And when you're able to kind of relate to them and understand them, the consequence might be that we have to basically reinvent everything we thought we knew. And unlike what we often find in spirituality, this is what scientists are trying to do. Every day, scientists are trying to prove themselves wrong. While often in spirituality, one is trying to prove oneself right. One decides what truth is, and then one spends one's life trying to confirm it and convince other people. What we in spirituality needs to learn from science is that once you have found something that you believe, do everything in your power to destroy it. Do everything in your power to prove that you are wrong. Because like in science, it's only when you have gone through every single possible way of trying to disprove this observation, it's only then it can be accepted as reality. And we need to do this in spirituality too. And this is basically what I teach people. This is my approach to spirituality, teaching people the tools and how to evaluate one's own spiritual journey. Because it's so simple. It's so like it's too easy for people to have an epiphany and then believing that they understand everything. Scientists have the same thing. Scientists can also have like, oh, I get it now, but then the work starts, because then you have to, go through that whole machinery of testing, retesting, and retesting until you absolutely kind of know, based on your tools and methodologies, that, okay, this might probably be something we can relate to, at least for now. And in spirituality, we need to have the same approach. And I think also more and more people are moving and growing into this approach to spirituality. We understand that belief systems are basically poison, because when you have established a belief, there is no more analysis, there is no more probing. And the moment you have a clear definition of something, you will start defending it. And we see the same thing in science. You have the old, professors having built their career on their discoveries and they spend the rest of their lives defending it and trying to fight off everyone trying to disapprove them. In spirituality, we see the same thing.
Right.
And I think it's so important that we all actively try to apply critical thinking and methodology that will enable us to also in our insights and spiritual journeys understand the difference between the delusions of the ego and when something is actually real. But I try to inspire people to relate to science more, because the world of science is better at this, at least for now.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, I agree. I think that this process of, as you say, moving vertically to literally entirely new conceptual systems, new arenas of experience that are utterly unlike things we've had before, and new arenas of understanding, is never ending.
Right.
In principle, one cannot arrive. And in some sense, the hope of arriving is what has to be let go. It's enjoying the process of exploration, which is both exhilarating and terrifying. It's exhilarating because there is something new to find. It's terrifying because to really inhabit the new involves letting go of the old. And there's safety in the old, is what you know. And so that's one reason why we tend to stick with the dogmas that we already know, is because they're comfortable, they're familiar, and moving into the new ideas is quite scary. But as we've talked about, Gödel's incompleteness theorem his theorems seem to be telling us that the process is never ending, and no matter how far we advance in this vertical dimension, we in fact have never even gotten off the launch pad.
Exactly.
We're always going to have an infinite variety, or a boundless variety, if not infinite, a boundless variety of explorations ahead, where the conceptual revolutions are going to be incredibly important and total. There's an interesting insight that you can get on all this from some work in developmental psychology. There's a famous developmental psychologist, Jean Piaget, and there's the field has moved well beyond. He's been dead for quite a while, and the field has moved on. But some of his ideas are quite interesting still. He had this notion of assimilation versus accommodation in terms of the conceptual development of the child. So a child, according to Piaget, had a certain conceptual repertoire. So they were at a certain, as you would say, a horizontal level. And for a while, as they experienced life, they fit the experiences into their current conceptual repertoire. So that's what Piaget called assimilation. But then Piaget said that there was critical in the development of the child that they would go through these conceptual revolutions, where you literally move to a new conceptual, and that he called accommodation. And so what we're talking about here, in some sense, is like the assimilation, the horizontal learning, accommodation, which is moving vertical, that Piaget talks about in developmental psychology. But what we're saying is what Piaget is sort of pointed out is happening in children, and we can sort of see the stages in children, is we're still children. We're still having to go through so normal science is assimilation. Right now, when we're letting go of space-time, that's an accommodation. That's a change in the conceptual repertoire, a fundamental change in the conceptual repertoire of the scientists. And you hear the scientists, the physicists, say things like this. I mean, Nima Arkhani Hamed, in one of his lectures, says, physics has been about what happens in space and time. That's what physics has been. That's how we've thought about it. And now when we're letting go of space-time, it's not really clear what physics is about. Now there's a conceptual revolution where you're actually trying to reconceptualize what your entire discipline is about. and 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 we can do that, right? It takes brilliant, brave, intelligent people to take the bold step and say, okay, when we let go of space-time and we try to reconceptualize what physics itself is, what kinds of new mathematical structures can we get? And then how can we understand the old, a simpler conception of physics as what happens in space-time? So we don't throw away the old. We go to new levels and then try to understand the old
Exactly.
as a simplified projection of a deeper reality. So absolutely, and I completely agree with you about the importance of non-dogmatism in all this. In some sense, the way we're talking about it, the point is you never arrive. You're only at this stage, but you never arrive. And that's in some sense, the deepest understanding of spirituality may be that you never arrive, that you're always a baby, that you're always an infant compared to what there is to know, and that you have that attitude of open humility, of being willing to now let go and move to the next level. So there's, in some sense, from this point of view, the deepest notion of spirituality is this profound humility that says, I've only just begun, and I can be tutored and corrected, and my understanding can be completely revolutionized at any moment, and I welcome that. And we're all sort of partners. We're not adversaries with, pushing different points of view. We're all fellow explorers and partners, trying to be open to this process of continually growing and learning, and that seems to me what it seems to be about, a non-dogmatic openness to continual learning.
Absolutely. And the thing is that, we can never arrive because that is linear. And the linear reality is part of this version of space-time. And so without time, there cannot be a beginning or an end. There is simply this expression. And I've compared this to, in the old days, at kind of circuses or whatever, you would see this performance where they balance plates on bamboo sticks. Have you seen that? They start with one, and then the second one, and then they have to go back to the first one, and then you do the number 50, and then you have to go back. No matter how many you establish, you always have to go back to the first one, because it's a matter of being able to kind of like readjust all of them, and the better you get, the more of them you can balance at the same time. It doesn't mean that you will ever be done. It's about how many you can balance. And expansion of consciousness is that. It's basically being present to all your different levels at the same time. It's all, different aspects of your isness. So from a consciousness point of view, and when you look at evolution, how we see it is that when you start the process of incarnation, if you think of it in a linear way, because, we have a linear mind, we start out with the easy kind of vibrations. And then you have like base elements and stuff like that, which is a way to start. And then you will have combinations, and you will have particles, and then you have molecules, all that. So you incarnate in all these different levels. And how far you go, it's basically how much can you expand. It means how many plates are you able to balance at the same time. But you always have to go back to the first one. It never stops. It's simply a matter of adding more and more and more and more. And this is also why I say expansive consciousness is about how much you are able to include. And not only include, but you have to make it work organically as one. And that's kind of like you get the hang of it. But you never get to a level where you say, I'm done with this. And to me, it's so funny when people in kind of like spiritual communities say, oh, I'm past that level, I'm done with this. In nature, that's impossible. Your body consists of minerals. It can consist of all these different levels of life. Cells can also be looked upon as a kind of a separate life form. We have bacteria, we have all these different levels within us, and we have to be present to each and every one of them. And this is kind of, again, the readjustment. Whenever we learn something that changes the mathematics, of the first plate, and we have to go back and we have to adjust and attune it and create this alignment. And the true expansion is basically how many plates you can balance at the same time. And when you stretch too far, you will figure out, oh, I wasn't able to do this. That's fine. And then you will have to kind of go back to the level where you are able to kind of make it work, and you work from then on. But there are infinite plates, infinite bamboo sticks. It never ends. And it's just a matter of like being part of that journey, but never ever, think or believe that at some point you will be done, that you will arrive, that the journey is over. Because I often said that, you're only on a journey for as long as you believe that there is a journey. Because in reality, there isn't one. It's simply the slow realization that you are already oneness. And that is growing out of that resistance. And even at that point, it never stops. It simply means that you're even more present to life, even more present in it. So you include more. The way you exist changes based on your level of consciousness, but it never ever stops.